mistaken about the boat. It was an English frigate, and he was captured and seized. In the soles of his shoes, in a memorandum written in Latin, indicated his mission. He was taken to General Howe's headquarters, and the evidence from his shoes was discovered. General Howe ordered that he be hanged the next morning. He was requested by the English officer to make his dying speech and confessions. His response was, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." Vignette. John Adams. It was Monday, July 1, 1776. It was hot and steamy in Philadelphia. Everyone was apprehensive about the British forces. But as far as John Adams was concerned, independence and the war were never spoken of in the disjunctive. Adams put it this way: "The object is great which we have in view. We must expect a great expense of blood to obtain it. But we should always remember that a free constitution of civil government cannot be purchased at too dear a rate, as there is nothing on this side of Jerusalem of equal importance to mankind." It is said by some that Adams' speech was the greatest of his lifetime. Independence was declared. All American heroes did not live in continental times. On June 6, 1944, on the command of General Eisenhower, the attack on German troops was made off Normandy, France. 225 U.S. Rangers jumped off a British landing craft and ran to the bottom of the cliffs. Their motive and mission was take Point du Hoc. Those were the heroes who helped us win the war. President Reagan, on the 40th anniversary of that day, stood on the Normandy breach, and he told American veterans in attendance, "You all knew that some things are worth dying for. One's country is worth dying for, and democracy is worth dying for, because it is the most deeply honorable form of government ever devised by man. All of you loved liberty. All of you were willing to fight tyranny, and you knew the people in your country were behind you." 225 U.S. Rangers attempted to ascend Point du Hoc, with German soldiers above shooting down upon them. After 2 days of fighting, 90, only 90, could still bear arms. But they took Point du Hoc. Freedom, liberty, courage, patriotism. I have been to Normandy and to Pointe du Hoc 3 times. It is breathtaking. 10,000 American soldiers are buried in the cemetery with crosses and stars of David, appropriately assembled, row after row after row. If you ever go to France, fail not to go there. It is only a short journey from Paris. Vignette. Todd Beamer, Jeremy Glick, and Tom Barnett. They were passengers on United Airlines Flight 93, hijacked by the Al-Qaeda on September 11. That plane was destined for the White House or the Capitol. Beamer was a business executive from suburban New Jersey, married, the father of 2 boys, aged 4 and 2, and a 3rd child on the way. Glick was an internet salesman from Boston, married, and the father of a 12-week-old daughter. Burnett was a vice president at a medical research company, married with 3 children. Beamer was a stalwart in his church and committed to his faith. Glick was Jewish and not particularly religious. All of them had been high school or college athletes. 3 more typically American men would be hard to imagine. Jeremy Glick had a cell phone, and he called his wife from a hijacked plane. He wanted to confirm the rumor that in the last few minutes other planes had crashed into the World Trade Center. She told him it was true. "We've decided," he said, after talking to his wife and after the 3 men conferred, "we're going to do it." Burnett also had talked to his wife. He said, "I know that we're all going to die, but there are 3 of us here who are going to do something about it." Beamer had a telephone line open to a phone operator in Chicago. He made her promise to call his wife, and she heard him recite the Lord's Prayer. They forced the plane down in the countryside of Pennsylvania, near Shanksville. Those men who knew the difference between good and evil exemplify the closing words of the Declaration of Independence, which are, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Vignette. Richard Reed was the shoe bomber who attempted to put a bomb in his shoe and set it off on his flight from Europe to Boston. He failed. He was captured. He was tried. He was found guilty in federal court. He was sentenced according to law by U.S. District Judge William Young in Boston on January 30, 2003. A bit of Judge Young's sentencing words are as follows. Mr. Richard C. Reed, hearken now to the sentence the court imposes upon you. Count 8. The court sentences you to the mandatory 30 years consecutive to the 80 years just imposed. That is a total of 110 years. Let me explain this to you. We are not afraid of any of you terrorist co-conspirators, Mr. Reed. We are Americans. We have been through the fire before. You are a terrorist. You are not a soldier in any war. You are a terrorist. To call you a soldier gives you far too much stature. Here in this society, the very winds carry freedom. They carry it everywhere from sea to shining sea. See that flag, Mr. Reed? That is the flag of the United States of America. That flag will fly there long after this is all forgotten. That flag stands for freedom. It always will. Custody officer, stand him down. After reading Judge Young's sentence in this case, I called him on the telephone. He had not the vaguest idea who I was, but he took the call anyway. I told him that I was a former federal judge and I congratulated him on his conduct and on the sentence imposed. He graciously and modestly responded. I could visualize what the sentencing courtroom looked like as we talked on the phone. Freedom, courage, liberty, patriotism. And yet, President George Washington. President Washington said more than 235 years ago, there is nothing so likely to produce peace as to be well prepared to meet the enemy. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for and protected and handed on for years to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. Freedom, courage, liberty, patriotism. For a substantial number of years now, I've been the invitee of the Brotherhood of St. Andrews to give a 4th of July speech. You have been extremely warm and generous to me. I'm especially grateful for those of you, and there are many who have repetitively come year after year.